All right, there we go. I think we're good now.
Okay. Okay, so we're now live to the public as well, and we'll proceed with the roll call. So I'm here as vice chair, as I said. Councillor Kent, are you here? Councillor Becky Kent? Not yet. Ashley Bowers, are you here?
I'm present, thank you.
Hi, Ashley. And you're from Ecology Action, replacing Kelsey Lane, I believe?
Yep.
Correct. Next, Douglas Wetmore.
I am present, thank you.
Okay, Douglas. Miles McCormick.
Hi, Hugh. I'm present.
Okay, hi, Miles. Paul Berry.
Hello, all. I'm present.
Hi, Paul. Andrew Taylor. Andrew Taylor here. Okay, let's hope he joins. Milena Casanavicius.
Pretty good. I am here. Thank you.
I'm trying my best, Milena.
Oh, it's excellent. Very well. Thank you.
Okay. Elizabeth Push. Are you here? Elizabeth Push? No?
And I'm here.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I have it down as Push. Yeah, there's a miss.
No, it's P. It's just like Hugh.
Yes, Q. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. I think it was spelled wrong on the list. They mentioned that last week.
Okay, thanks a lot. Peter Zimmer. Peter Zimmer. Peter's not here yet. He's replacing Megan Doucette from Cycle Halifax.
Sorry, I had my mute button on. I'm here.
Oh, hello, Peter. Alison Carlisle.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, Alison.
Hello.
And Mohammed Ehsan.
First meeting, I'm here.
Hello, Mohammed. And you're
Nice meeting everyone.
Alternate member replacing Kate Sullivan. So you're new to the committee, correct?
Right.
Okay. We have staff members, David McIsaac. You here, David?
Yep, I'm here.
Hi, David. And Harrison McGrath, or McGraw, I'm not sure which.
McGrath, yes, I'm here too.
Hello, Harrison. Okay, so moving on, we now have approval of minutes, the minutes of the April 15th meeting, which I believe were circulated. Are there any errors or omissions to the draft minutes? I'm hearing none. I'll ask one more time. Are there any errors or omissions to the draft minutes? Okay, in that case, I'll call for the question for moving the minutes.
I can move that.
Thank you. And we need a seconder for moving approval of the minutes.
I can do that, Hugh.
Okay, thank you. All right, now, so I guess all those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 And are there any opposed? If so, say nay or raise your hand. Hearing none, I'll declare that the motion is carried and the draft minutes are approved as presented. So moving on to approval of the order of business, Liam, are there any additions or deletions to the order of business?
Good afternoon. We have no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Very good. Okay. So I now need a motion to approve the order of business. Please, and you need a mover and a seconder.
I can move.
Did we get both there?
Well, Milena can second that, and I'm not sure who said that moved.
It was Mohammed, I believe, who moved it.
Excellent.
And Milena will second it.
Yep.
All right. Are there any, where are we? So now we have a motion on the floor. Those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, if there are any, say nay or raise your hand. Hearing none, I declare that the motion regarding approval of the order of business is approved. So, and we move on to item 4, business arising out of the minutes. There is no business arising out of the minutes, okay? Item 5, call for declaration of conflicts of interest. If any committee members have conflicts of interest to declare relating to the agenda items, would you please indicate that? Not hearing any, so that's fine. We'll proceed to item 6, consideration of deferred business. And again, there is no deferred business. Item 7 is correspondence, petitions, and delegations. So I'll ask Liam, our legislative assistant, if there's any correspondence received through the clerk's office.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair. There has been 2 pieces of correspondence received. One for item 8.2.1 for discussion this afternoon, and 1 additional piece for your consideration. Those 2 pieces of correspondence have been circulated to the committee.
Very good, thank you, Liam. Item 7.2, again asking Liam, are there any petitions that have been received through the clerk's office?
And no petitions have been received through the clerk's office.
Thank you. Okay. Item 8 is reports and discussion relating to reports and updates. Item 8.1.1 is the staff update, and I'll ask David McIsaac to provide us with a staff update regarding, I guess there are 2 items. One is the McDonald Bridge bike connector, and the second is final budget approval for the active transportation. So, David?
Sure. So I guess there was a request just for an update on where this McDonald Bridge Bikeway Connectors project stands. So just for, I guess, members of the committee who are relatively new, we've got a project that's called Regional Center AAA Bikeway Network Project, which is an IMP commitment to have a network of safer, connected, all ages and abilities bicycle facilities in the regional center. A big part of that project, probably the most important, well, I won't say the most important, they're all important, but a big part of it is looking at how the McDonald Bridge Bikeway connects to the existing and future bike networks on the Dartmouth side and the existing and future networks on the Halifax side. And when people talk about this project, or when you hear it, sort of, you know, the main thing folks talk about is the ramp or the flyover structure that we will be building on the Halifax side. And so that's a big part of it. And that would connect with an upgraded intersection at North and Gottingen, so some work there. And then also connect up to Northwood and Creighton Street, where we are planning a local street bikeway. Other parts, you know, an important part of that project, and, you know, as much of the work happening on that side is going to be improvements to the transit kind of hub aspect of that area, and constructing kind of a larger new bus stop in there. Right now, we're just advancing the design on that side. It's targeted right now for construction next year in 2022. It's still, you know, a little bit too early in the design process to kind of be able to commit to that. We'll have a better idea this fall. you know, the main reason for that is just how complex it is. It's you know, we're trying to kind of weave the structure and the supports in a pretty complicated intersection, and there's a lot of design work still to do, but right now we're on schedule. We're on target to kind of be able to at least break ground next year. But we'll, you know, there'll be lots of time. If you have any questions about that or want any more details, that's kind of where that side stands. The Dartmouth side is out for tender right now. So the plan on the Dartmouth side is to build, to have an intersection with the Bridge Bikeway right at the Wise Nantucket Bridgehead intersection. And that would connect to protected unidirectional bike lanes on Wise Road that would go from Thistle to Boland Street. There would also be a pathway that would go up Nantucket to get to that signal that takes you across to the Sportsplex and the bridge terminal. And then from Boland to Albro Lake, we would have a painted bike lane that would have bollards sort of on top of the painted line. As you probably know, Wise Road kind of gets a lot narrower north of Bold Street. So the direction from our plan that we approved at council was to kind of do our best there in a constrained environment to make it as separated and as distinct as possible. And then just the last part of the project that we're still designing is kind of how you get from Wise Road down into downtown Dartmouth. The original plan was to kind of use a local street network on Lyle and Shore Road, but we didn't quite get where we wanted to on the design for that to a comfort level to build. So right now we're focusing on sort of extending the bike lanes from where they would stop now at Thistle and go down and get to Geary, kind of going down Windmill to where it connects into Alderney Drive. And then on the way up, we're going to, right now the concept is to use part of the Dartmouth Common kind of outside the fence and try to create a bit of a switchback kind of a bike lane or facility that kind of helps you climb the hill there. So that's kind of, and so that's out for tender rate. That should be constructed this season. It's going to be a big, but also I should mention that this is the Active Transportation Committee. So on both sides, we're seeing and looking also for pedestrian safety improvements. And we think, at least on the Dartmouth side, we got a big one in that the place right now, when you're a pedestrian on the Dartmouth side going on and off the bridge, you have to cross over kind of a turn channel. It's a turn ocean. It's a massive space where pedestrians are exposed, and we're going to be able to tighten that up quite a bit, and we hope make it a much safer and more comfortable place for pedestrians. So that's kind of a quick general overview of the McDonald Bridge Bikeway Connectors project. It's funded in part by the local and provincial governments under our $25 million infrastructure agreement. And maybe I'll just stop there and see if folks have any questions on that.
Okay, thank you, David. So I'll just go through the speaking list to give everyone a chance to ask questions or provide comments. Councillor Kent, are you there? Have you joined us? No. Ashley Boas, you have any questions or comments?
No, nothing at this stage, thanks.
Okay. Douglas Wetmore, questions or comments?
Yeah, sorry, if you could just clarify quick, I'm not sure if I missed it, but with the ramp that's being planned to build on McDonald Bridge, you said that's currently on schedule to start construction next year?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the timeline for that project being finished? Is that also next year or 2023, 24?
It's a good question. Ideally, we would construct all in 1 year. I think once we have the detailed or we're further along the design process and our colleagues in construction and so on can kind of look at it and start piecing it together, we'll get a better understanding about if we can build it all in 1 year. So time will tell. Obviously, it's if we can get the tender out, well in advance of the construction season, which we currently intend to do, that would help enable that construction to all happen in 1 year. But we will see.
Yeah, just curious about the timeline. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so carrying on through the speaker list, Mars McCormick, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, David, during your presentation, you said that the tender was out for the Dartmouth side, but during your presentation, it broke up. Do you have a timeline when you anticipate construction would start on the Dartmouth side?
It should start, I would say July is a reasonable estimate. So, there's a bit of time once you award the contract, and then, you have to get things lined up for construction, but it'll be, in the middle of the summer.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, Mars, thank you. Paul Berry, any questions or comments?
No, nothing for me. Thank you.
Okay, Paul. Andrew Taylor, questions or comments? No. Is Andrew here?
Either Hugh, I don't see him in the I don't see Andrew in the meeting right now. So
okay,
until we get confirmation from him or Councillor Kent, perhaps we'll just skip them on the speaking list.
Right. So next, Milena Casanavicius.
Yeah. Thank you, Vice Chair. Hi, David. Just you cut out for me a little bit as well on the pedestrian and the tightening to make it safer. Any idea what will be done?
Yeah, so it will it'll be a kind of a turn channel, smart channel. So there will still be a place for cars and buses vehicles to kind of make the right hand off bridge. It will be, it'll be 5 meters wide or 4 meters wide curb. So, pedestrians will only have exposure, I guess, rather than it's really just kind of an extension of the parking lot of the bridge entrance.
Okay, I think I caught most of it. Am I the only one that had David cut out again a little bit?
Oh,
No.
no.
Oh,
No.
okay, good.
Oh,
Sorry.
Not alone.
Yeah, David cut out for me as well.
Okay, I think I got the gist. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, but I just turned my camera off in case that helps with the audio.
Okay. Elizabeth Pugh, do you have any comments or questions?
No comments at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Peter Zimmer?
Yes, I do have a comment or question for David. This is really transferred to me from Sarah and Megan. The question is on the segment northbound bike lane between Boland and Albro Lake.
Yeah.
I'm informed that it is 1.5 meters wide, and the plan is to take down the bollards during snow season. And we're concerned about that because a transitory evaporation, now you see it, now you don't, protected for bike lane, really is not very well protected. I mean, Halifax Cycling Coalition would advocate that those bollards should stay up full-time 20, and if needed, widen that bike lane in that section by another 2 centimeters. I mean, apparently that your plows can work in a 1.7 meter wide bike lane, but they can't work in 1.5. And, the cost of not having that bike lane year round is to discourage active transportation. I mean, and that seems, you cut it out and you say, oh, either if you're going to go along that, you're going to be in the street riding with the cars and trucks, or you're not going to use it. We don't think that's a good solution. And, we'd ask for another 2 centimeters times the length of that road to make it so it's doable, or that somebody buys a plow that can work in the 1.5 meter width of it to keep it open year round.
So just a couple of little backgrounds there, and then I'll try to share my knowledge on snow clearing and widths and all that kind of stuff. So one, from the very beginning, we've known that it was going to be tough to get a protected facility on this segment because of the available width, curb to curb. There, it narrows up. So our recommendation from our functional planning consultant was to put in a painted bike lane with some buffer. And then when we took it to detailed design, we requested that, to see how it could be enhanced, like how could it be made better than just a painted bike lane. And so we came up with the idea of using the bollards. Typically, where we use bollards in the municipality, they're within kind of at least a meter wide buffer, and that is to, partially it's to protect them physically from the snowplow. It's just obviously a buffer is better in terms of separation of vehicles from motor vehicles, and so it's a constrained space. So the bollards were an attempt to make an improvement over just a painted bike lane in a spot where we really didn't have the room to widen it. So if we were to make the bike lane a little bit wider, it would still be very difficult to clear in the winter because those bollards are just very vulnerable to snowplow blades as well. And also, so, there would be snowplow blades kind of on either side of it, inside the bike lane, and then the one that's going down the street. And, we're just not confident, we just don't think they'd survive the winter is kind of the situation that we're in. But what I think we're going to do is that part of Wise Road was designed a couple of years ago, actually. So it's kind of been sitting on the shelf waiting for the rest of the project to come along. So there may be other sort of separation treatments that have been developed that we might be able to look at that would that could potentially be around. I still don't know yet. Or, the other solution, and again, you kind of got to it in terms of equipment again, and this would have to be something that we explored with our Winter Works folks. If there was, a way to get in there and guarantee a clear bike lane, a clear roadway, and still be able to have infrastructure, the protective barrier that stays. So it's not, I certainly, I 100% agree that having some kind of physical barrier there year round is the best solution. however, we're kind of faced with this situation where there's just there's no space, or there's a lack of space. And it's, it's not just narrowing up the vehicle lane widths, and we're happy to explore that. We do that regularly on projects that have constrained areas. But even if we were able to narrow up the lanes, the vehicle lanes, and widen out the bike lane, wide enough for a plow, we would still have a situation where those bollards are just really exposed, really vulnerable, and my money would be on that, most of them wouldn't last the winter.
Right.
So where it kind of stands with us right now is we're gonna at least install the painted bike lane as part of the project this year. If we have time this year, we will look at some other options for those bollards. And if we don't have time just in this construction season, because things are just crazy busy for everybody right now, it would be something that we would spend some design work and explore other potential products over the winter, and then put those in the spring. Anyway, that's kind of what we're playing with right now as some potential with widening right of ways and getting rid of utility poles and other options. I'm all ears, but it's the kind of a typical Halifax situation where we need to kind of do the best that we can in the space available.
Okay.
And maybe we can do better, and we're interested in exploring if there is a better solution.
Yeah. I guess I'd wonder about the bollards being sort of designed to have a fixed permanent in the pavement component, and basically a breakaway top that could easily be replaced whenever some plow knocks it over. Sort of.
Yeah.
Just have something that's replaceable. The other designer's thought on this is, well, what about an overhead arm with a hanging bollard? Basically, it's a visual barrier. It's not a really physical barrier, but it provides reflective indications of where the hell the bike lane is for that jurisdiction. Or like a lamppost leaning out over that 1.5 meters of pavement, or 1.7 meters of pavement with a dangly bit. I don't know. I'm just saying the core issue is that if it's established this summer, this fall, you can start to use it, and then in November it disappears. That's really not good for the cyclist, and it's really not good for training the drivers to stay the hell away from the curb. I think one of the things on active transportation in my research and experience, a longtime cyclist here, is the real hard part is educating the drivers to the level that they have a almost visceral understanding. They don't need to think about what's the law or what's the rule or what's that sign say. And visual design clues are a very strong amplifier of that. Anyway, I throw it to you, and I'd be glad to talk with you more about this.
Yeah, and again, there's not too much I disagree with you there, just in terms of the importance of having consistent facilities. And I would, if anybody has any suggestions, or if anybody sees products or anything like that, we are more than willing to explore the options here.
Okay. So thank you, Peter, and that's an important issue that you raised. Hopefully something can be done, but we'll move on to the other speakers and give them a chance. Is Alison Carlisle, do you have any questions or concerns?
No questions or comments at this time.
No? Okay. And Mohammed Ihsan?
No, I don't have any question right now.
Okay, fine. And finally, me, and I do actually have a quick question for David regarding the estimated completion date for the work on the Dartmouth side, because we heard it may be starting in July. Will it be finished this year?
It's too early to say. I think there is, basically in terms of what we've estimated for construction time, there is, there should be enough time. However, that we'll only really be able to know that, once we get the contractor on board and work through some of the details of implementation. I suspect it will go into the fall, and part of that, one, it's going to be involve working on one of the busiest streets in the municipality. So, a lot of traffic control will be involved. We'll see what flexibility there is to work late into the night. Typically it's easier to do that on a street like Wise Road, where there isn't too many or any residential residences fronting it. So that might help us out a bit there. It's also, it's a bit of I've described it as a finicky project, and I don't know, that's obviously not a technical term, but it's not like we're starting with a green field and we're just kind of building something fresh and new. We're kind of going into existing infrastructure and customizing it along the way. We have a bit of experience now in the municipality with these types of projects, and the construction industry is starting to get used to them. So anyway, that's a long way of saying I think so, but it'll take a bit of, the more people, once the construction firm is on board and more of these sorts of factors are considered, we'll have a better idea or an estimated completion timeline.
Okay, thank you, David. So does anyone have anything further to add regarding this McDonald Bridge project? Or should we, if so, raise your hand or speak now? Okay, then we'll move on to the second part of the staff update. David, were you going to provide an update on the status of the budget, or did I miss that?
I think it was in an earlier version of the agenda, it kind of got combined with the McDonald Bridge Bikeway, and I talked to Liam, and I think he was going to separate them out, but I'm not sure what it looks like on the agenda right now.
Well, they're sort of down there as the same agenda item, actually, but
okay.
If you have something to information to provide us with, that would be good in terms of the budget.
Sure. I mean, well, the HRM's budget was passed 2 or 3 weeks ago now. The active transportation strategic account, which is sort of where a lot of the capital, where a lot of the dollars come to build things like new sidewalks, to be granted out to community groups, to build new sections of multi-use pathway, in 2021 is about 3.3 million. It's right now at 3.3 million in 22-23, and then goes down to 3 million in 23-24. I think at the last meeting I shared the detailed project lists to kind of indicate what projects are being built out of that money. It's mostly new sidewalk. Is accounts for at least 80% of that amount of money. Yeah. What any other questions on this, or was there specific information that that people were looking for on this item?
Hi, it's Paul Berry. I'm just wondering if you can tell us what amounts are designated for the AT trail maintenance and the AT recreational trail maintenance and capital on both of those.
I can tell you that I can tell you on AT. So I think the maintenance amount is whatever people wanted. We had enough money to accommodate everybody's maintenance requests. I think I don't have the number in front of me, but I think it was in the low hundreds of thousands of dollars. That comes from an operating account, so I just don't happen to have that right in front of me right now. But so that was all approved. And then in terms of grants to active transportation projects, it came in at just under $325,000. Everybody, all the projects that were submitted were eligible and were approved, and thankfully we were able to fit them into our budget allocation.
So you don't know the difference between the recreational and the pure AT divisions there? Because there is the recreational trail is separate, right?
Yeah, so there's a separate grant program for recreational facilities, and yeah, sorry, Paul, I'm not responsible for that, so I don't have it in front of me right now. I can dig that up and ask someone to send it over to you if you're interested.
I would be. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or concerns for David regarding the budget? If you can speak or raise your hand. Okay, no more, so we'll move on. We now have, where are we? Excuse me, just give me a moment. Harrison McGrath will be providing an update on the Portland Street and Cole Harbour functional planning study. Harrison?
Hello. I do have a quick PowerPoint. I'm going to try to share my screen. Or Liam, am I able to share my screen?
Hi, Harrison. Yeah, just give me one quick second to promote you, okay?
Okay, great.
All right, give that a go.
Okay. Is the PowerPoint slide showing?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Great. So my name is Harris McGrath. I'm a transportation planning program engineer with planning and development, and I am the HRM project manager for the Portland Street and Cole Harbour Road functional plan project. So this project really originated with the adoption of the Integrated Mobility Plan back in December of 2017. So the IMP calls for the development of strategic corridor plans for existing roadways that are key to regional traffic flow, transit, goods movement, and active transportation. So Portland Street, for people familiar with it, I assume most of you probably are, is a street that has heavy transit and a lot of traffic, but also, I mean, it's an important street for pedestrians, and cyclists do use it as well. So we are looking at it through a complete streets lens. As a brief introduction, this is the functional transportation and land use plan for Portland Street and Cole Harbour Road. So we do have staff from both the kind of engineering side for the transportation portions, and also we have a planning team on the project as well. So as I mentioned before, a strategic corridor planning project with multimodal priorities, and the project will evaluate both transportation and land use impacts with and without the Shearwater connector. So for those of you that may not be familiar with the Shearwater connector, I do have it in a later slide, but the Shearwater connector it's been a new road project that's been on the books for a while now. It's included in our regional plan. The road would connect Caldwell Road to Mount Hope Avenue. So a portion of that project, the Mount Hope Avenue interchange, was completed, I think, about 10 years ago. So it would be completing that connection over to Caldwell Road across lands that are currently owned by the Shearwater military base. The project objectives are to identify and understand options to improve the quality and consistency of transportation for all users, and also to understand the land use planning options for the corridor. So both along the corridor, but also there are lands off of Caldwell Road and in the Morris Lake area that could develop could develop and would integrate into this project.
Hi, Harrison. It's Liam, the legislative assistant here. Do you mind just unsharing your screen and then trying to share it again? We just don't see the slides moving on our end.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
So is the PowerPoint showing again?
No, we're not seeing anything, Harrison.
Mm-mm.
Screen
It says it's showing on my end. Liam, I did send a copy to you. I don't know if it's possible for you to share.
Yep. Just give me 1 second to pull it up there. Okay, bear with me, folks. It's just loading up right now.
Okay.
Harrison, what slide were you on there? 3, 4?
I believe it was. I was just getting to the 5th one, which is study area.
Okay.
Luckily, there were no graphics shown on the first few slides, so nobody missed too much.
There we go. Everyone can see that?
I see that.
Yeah, can see that.
Great. Yeah, this is perfect. So as I mentioned before, so here's the study area. It's the length of Portland Street, right from the Prince Albert Road and Alderney Drive intersection, through to the length of Portland Street and Cole Harbor Road, ending at Bissett Road. And as you can see in the broken line, there's a kind of rough outline of where the Shearwater connector would be. So the big consideration for whether or not, first of all, this project won't necessarily determine whether or not the Shearwater connector is built, but we will be evaluating kind of how the Portland Street would look like with or without that connection. So if that connection was built, we would see a fair amount of traffic that currently comes off of Caldwell Road and uses Portland Street and Cole Harbor would actually be diverted to the Shearwater connector. So we'd see a fairly significant reduction in traffic volumes. Next slide, please, Liam. So for the project scope, this project, it's a heavily heavily focused on transit. So as per the rapid transit strategy that was adopted by council last year, this is a bus rapid transit route that would start at the Portland Hills terminal and travel to downtown Dartmouth and continue to downtown Halifax. So that plan does recommend bus lanes for the majority of that corridor. So also we are looking to add and improve existing active transportation infrastructure. So, I mean, we'll be looking at existing sidewalk widths and where they should be widened. We'll be looking at all the pedestrian crossings, both signalized and unsignalized. We'll be looking to increase boulevards between the roadway and sidewalks where possible, just to make it more comfortable and safer for pedestrians. And we'll also be looking at a few different cycling options. So Cole Harbor Road between Bissett Road and Caldwell Road was added to the active transportation priorities plan as a candidate cycling route. So luckily in that area, there aren't plans for transit lanes right now. So the kind of priority will shift from transit to cycling infrastructure once we get past the Portland Hills Transit Terminal. And we'll also be evaluating where and how development could support this transportation infrastructure. So if bus, or more so when BRT is implemented, we need a lot of people that live within the walkshed of transit to support that high level of both investment and service in the transit infrastructure. And I mean, we'll be looking also at the pedestrian connections to the transit infrastructure, because I mean, most transit riders begin and finish the route as pedestrians and cyclists as well. Next slide, please. So here's just a clip from the rapid transit strategy. This is the red line that, as I mentioned, begins at Portland Hills and travels to downtown Dartmouth and on to Halifax. It may be difficult to see, but the blue outline of that route is where transit lanes are recommended. So beginning at Portland Hills to about Penhorn, where the priority is to have transit lanes in both directions. Once we get past Penhorn and closer to downtown Dartmouth, the road right-of-way narrows a fair amount. Also, just the character of the road, we go from a commercial 4 and 5 lane road to a more residential, still a road with a lot of traffic, but more residential, houses closer to the street, a lot of mature trees that we're doing our best to avoid impacting. So we will actually only have an inbound transit lane from through that area. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to include this section or this photo from the IMP. This is the AAA cycling network from the IMP. So there's no route actually planned on Portland Street, but the connection to Penhorn, which it's difficult to see, but that blue dot in the middle of your screen. So the IMP, the AAA network, didn't really plan for Portland Street to have AAA infrastructure, but the connection to Penhorn is important. Next slide, please. So here's a screenshot of the AT priorities plan. The red broken line is Portland Street and Cole Harbor Road. So this kind of shows that while there weren't routes planned for this road, there's parallel routes. But in saying that, so the section from Caldwell to the north to Bissett was added to the priorities plan. So we are looking at options for cycling infrastructure there. And through the first phase of public engagement, there is a lot of feedback we received from the entire community was around adding cycling infrastructure for the entire corridor. So as I mentioned, the section close to downtown Dartmouth, we're already seeing that getting a transit lane in alone is going to be a struggle just with the really narrow right-of-way we have. But we are going to be considering options for cycling infrastructure from Caldwell Road into Penhorn. Another really important piece is the connection across Highway 111. We are looking at how we make that happen. It'll likely be a separate pedestrian and cyclist bridge, separate from the existing overpass. A lot similar to the Burnside Drive connection over the Highway 111 there. Next slide, please. So the active transportation goals for the project, really, I mean, starting with pedestrians, it's to improve the existing infrastructure where it may not meet what would be ideal for today's uses and improve safety. So as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at, the infrastructure and safety is important. So we're going to really focus on the crossings. So we'll be evaluating options for a crossing across Highway 111. So it's really, that's a real deterrent from people traveling from the neighborhoods into downtown. There's a lot of development around Penhorn that increase density, but also there's a lot of services there, gyms, grocery stores, things like that that would be very beneficial for people to be able to access. So that's going to be a key goal for the project. As I mentioned before, options between Caldwell Road and Bissett Road as per the AT priority plan, but also additional areas that aren't included in our planning documents, but we're going to at least see what the options may look like. We can't, I don't want to kind of overpromise right now because we do really need to kind of get into the weeds before we know what's possible, but we are going to be seeing what we can do. Next slide, please. So here are the main project milestones. We're right now in the conceptual and functional design phase. So we held a public meeting at the end of March and presented this plan to the public and received a lot of feedback. So we've taken that feedback and tried to use, we are using it to kind of shape what the concepts look like. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of feedback received about adding cycling infrastructure that where it wasn't included in the AT priorities plan and IMP. So I'd say that's probably the primary topic that came out of engagement that we are looking at right now. So right now we're working with our consultant to come up with some concept plans. We'll kind of refine those a little bit, and then we'll return to the public to kind of show a few of the options and get feedback on that. And then there'll be a final report that will probably be end of summer, early fall from our consultant. And then we're hoping to return to council with a staff report by the end of this calendar year. Next slide, please. And so that's it for the presentation. I've included my contact information here and also a link to the project website on shapeyourcityhalifax.ca. There was a survey that was done. It has closed now, but there's also the presentation that was provided to or given to the public back in March. A recording of that is included, and I believe there's a lot of the questions and comments that we'd received during that public session are also included on the webpage. So we'll be doing a similar format for phase 2. Given the current COVID restrictions, it'll likely be online as well. So we'll do a presentation. It's for those of you that have participated in the open houses, it's a little different online, but we received pretty good feedback that it worked well doing the presentation and receiving the feedback online last time. And that's it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Harrison. So yes, we should actually go through the speaking list to give everyone a chance to respond. So I'm just going to go through the list in the reverse order now, and we're looking for any questions or comments to Harrison. Councillor Kent is not here, I guess, still. So we'll move to Ashley Boas. Do you have questions or comments?
Just a query, and again, I didn't have a chance to look at this beforehand, so thank you for the great presentation. So is the aim to use the main corridor of Portland Street for I guess all types of transport, really, as opposed to having active transport running in those parallel areas?
So I wouldn't say it's Portland Street instead of the others. The other routes are the routes that we have been laid out in our plans that we would that we are continuing to work away at. Anything we do on Portland Street, I believe, would be in addition to those routes. But those things that will, as we proceed further in the project, we'll kind of evaluate what the options are and what makes sense.
Awesome, thanks. And just another thing on the Shearwater connector, that is also for like all variations of traffic. It's not specifically for any particular type.
So active trans, I believe there's a multi-use path that would be included with that that roadway. That road, it's kind of unique. It would really be kind of a restricted access roadway. It's between one of the lakes and D&D property. So it's not like there wouldn't be a whole lot of neighborhood development for the majority of that route. Closer to the Mount Hope Avenue interchange, there would be some development there, but it really would be how it's envisioned right now is kind of just a 2-lane connector road with a multi-use path along it.
All right, great, thank you. That's all.
Okay, Ashley.
And sorry, just to expand on that a bit. I mean, we're not very far with those plans. It's still at a very high level, so we're not 100% sure that, you know, we don't have a very concrete plan on that or know really if it'll happen, if or when.
Okay. Yeah, just at my 2 cents worth. It depends on whether the DND actually willing to allow the route to travel through Shearwater, and it will also, I think, I'm sure, will depend on provincial funding as well. So Douglas Wetmore, do you have comments or questions?
No major comments or questions. Just want confirmation. Will we be able to get a copy of that slide deck after the meeting?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So
perfect. Thank you very much.
Will you distribute that through Liam, perhaps, to all of the committee?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
That's okay. It's Liam here. Yeah. So I just received this prior to the meeting, and I just didn't see it in my inbox. But I'll forward this to the committee for sure.
Okay. Thank you, Liam.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Liam.
And proceeding through the list, Miles McCormick, do you have questions or comments? Miles? Miles is not available right now. Paul Berry.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay, Paul. Andrew Taylor. Andrew's absent, I think, still. Milena, do you have comments or questions?
Yeah, I just have one question. Nice to hear you online, Harrison. Did you say that there for the second phase there will be public engagement as well?
Yes. So in the second phase, it'll be a similar an online open house with a presentation. So during that phase, we will have kind of concept level drawings that we'll be sharing and looking for feedback at specific locations, and we'll have 2 options too. So be looking at kind of feedback on the 2 options, which is preferred, and then areas of concern or things that people like about the designs.
And when do you estimate for that to happen potentially?
So we don't have dates yet. I would guess probably mid to end of July, July or August.
Okay, I think those are the questions because I'll have to borrow somebody's eyeballs to. I'm a little concerned with all the bus lanes that are going to be going in, which is great. We all like a fast-moving bus, and just with all the pedestrian crossings. So I'll get someone to describe some of the drawings, and perhaps Liam, when you send those PowerPoints, I could get PDF for me, please.
Can do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Milena. Elizabeth Pugh, do you have questions or concerns?
No, thank you.
No? Peter Zimmer?
Yes, I do have a question in the overall conceptual design.
Excuse me, Peter, could you turn your volume up slightly?
Okay.
I'm not hearing you very well.
Okay, I'll move in a little closer to do it. About 3 years ago, I took part in civilian input into the Bedford Highway Functional Plan, where they were looking at bus routes, express bus routes, and the idea that the express bus route would have stops only at transit terminals. I presented at that time the possibility, instead of just limiting yourself to a pedestrian transit interface at those points where you were talking, and that's a 10-minute walk, sort of walk shed, as you put it. The speed of traveling by bicycle is about 4 times as great. Okay, so if you look at a cycle shed, as it were, around there, you've got 16 times the area where you're drawing potential bus users from. Okay, so if you have a parking facility that's built into these express stops where commuters can leave their bikes securely for a full day, they will take the bus from that point into the city. I mean, from some of these things, it's a long haul into the city if you have a job in downtown Halifax or wherever. But if you can get to a close point on the bus, you may be able to combine quite regularly a very nice cycle ride, good exercise, all of that, park your bike securely, and take a bus. The buses, as they're now equipped for active transportation, they can only take 2 bicycles. That's their maximum. If somebody at the far end of the route gets on, 2 somebodies get on with their bicycles, that bus has no capacity at all to deal with cyclists for the rest of the way into the city. So that means there's a very severe limit on the amount of cyclists who could feed in to the city the whole way. And again, if you have these terminals that are, say, outside of the circumferential, okay, a couple of express terminals with bike parking, you may reduce the demand for cycle trips into the city down the rest of Portland Street, where it gets narrow. So, in some way it becomes a possible model to say, let's reduce the demand for cycle space in the older part of the city where the streets are even narrower, and provide a hybrid version. I mean, we provide that hybrid version for cars that park at Cole Harbor, right? And in Sackville. And they were very well received. I mean, I remember watching the estimates of how long it would take to arrive at demand capacity for those express buses. And they were talking 18 months to 24 months. The first one in Sackville, I think, was not quite 9 months before it was running at full capacity. When they added the Dartmouth side one, it was about 8 weeks. So, I mean, commuters are not dumb. They will look for a preferred mode that will get them to work fast and comfortably. And I'd like to see you guys in the conceptual planning looking at this as a real potential alternative that increases active transportation demand, increases the catchment area for your bus routes. Both of those are very desirable. So I will send you some more information that I've got on this, some of the diagrams I've looked at, and some of the technology providers. It will take some sort of a structure at the terminals to house. There are automated parking garages for bicycles that are very compact, that can store quite a stack on a roughly 6 meter square pad. So.
Yeah, no, and I mean, at some of the kind of main transit terminals, we will be looking at increased bike parking. I can't speak to the details around that, But also, so the BRT routes, they won't just stop at the transit terminals, but they will have less stops than conventional transit. And the areas that they do stop, they'll have, it'll be more of a station than a stop.
Yep.
So you'll say things like larger shelters, they have larger footprints than a typical bus stop. And I believe bicycle parking is being considered at the majority of those.
Okay.
The stations, depending on how much size or available property we have to work with, the size will vary. So in areas that we do have enough property for a larger station, there will be larger stations and better amenities at those stations along the route.
Okay.
So we are keeping that in mind. I just can't speak to the details right now because we're just not that far yet.
Okay.
Okay. Those are some good points, Peter. Thank you. Alison Carlisle, do you have comments or questions?
No, nothing to add.
Okay, Alison. And Mohammed Ehsan?
No, I don't have anything to, but I think Miles was saying something, but he was on mute at that point.
Ah, okay, we'll go back and see. Miles, do you have comments or questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, was there a tentative timeline for the phase 2 engagement or the open house?
Yeah, so not yet. I'm guessing it'll be kind of July or August of this year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I think we'll close the discussion on that. We'll certainly all have a chance with the second open house, and presumably Harrison will be back to make a presentation to this committee as well. So let's move on to 8.2.1, discussion around the AT Trail on Joseph Howe Drive. We received a request from Councillor Morse asking for a recommendation motion to the Transportation Standing Committee with regard to a letter from David Hoskin, and you had this in your package for this meeting. David Hoskin, just quickly to summarize, is very concerned that along at the, I guess, the crossing of the AT Trail where the Bicentennial enters Howe Avenue, apparently this is a very dangerous intersection for pedestrians on the trail and presumably for cyclists. And David Hoskin was requesting that there be a marked and signalized crosswalk at that intersection. Now, if anyone wants to speak to this, that's fine, but I guess it would be good if we had a motion to that effect that we could send to the Transportation Standing Committee. So does anyone wish to make a motion?
Chair, it's Liam here, you're the legislative assistant. I have a couple things. I'll put one in the chat, and maybe that we can discuss that,
Okay.
make amendments, and kind of go from there.
Chair, it's Paul Barry. I'd be happy to move that motion too once we get it formalized.
Thank you. I'm going to read the motion, particularly for Elena's benefit. So the suggested motion is as follows: that the Active Transportation Advisory Committee recommend the Transport Standing Committee request a staff report on available options to make active transportation users more visible on the Joseph Howe Drive / Chain of Lakes Trail intersection crossing. This report should consider, but not be limited to, appropriate crosswalk road markings. Just a moment. Appropriate crosswalk road markings, signage, speed humps, and overhead flashing crosswalk lights. So that's what you're moving. Do we have a seconder?
I can second that.
So
Thank you.
sorry, Hugh, just before we put that on, I'm going to recommend that we hear from David first. And if we still want to go forward, then we'll keep the mover and seconder and then go from there.
Okay. David McIsaac? Is David not there?
Sure.
Oh.
Thanks, you. Thanks, Liam. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. So just for the committee's information, this area is something that we are in preliminary design on right now. This is part of the Regional Center AAA Bikeway Network, where we are kind of doing two things at this intersection. One is creating a better and safer crossing from the Chain of Lakes Trail down into Elliott Street, which is the local street that's sort of under the overpass there that will eventually link up to the Bears Road multi-use pathway. And also part of the project is looking at the crossing of the Chain of Lakes Trail of just the exit 0, the off ramp there, and basically, looking at road markings, signal signs, and reduce that pedestrians have a staff report if the committee is interested in requesting that. But just to let folks know that it is, right now an active project that we are doing some design work on, and I think we're positioning that for construction next year.
Okay, thank you, David. So I guess in a way our this motion that we're considering may be inappropriate if the matter is already under review by staff. What would you suggest? Would you suggest that we send forward the motion anyway?
Well, it's really up to the committee. The motion, I would base the staff report would be a longer version of kind of what I probably just told you now, and might have some of the ideas represented, but I guess we would. It's already an active project. It's already in our capital project planning kind of time frame, and it already has a design engineer assigned to it. So it's underway.
Okay, I wonder then if we could amend the motion. Actually, I guess we didn't get a seconder for the motion anyway. So perhaps I'm just wondering if we could amend the motion to simply say that we strongly endorse the work that is currently underway to plan for a highly visible and signalized pedestrian and cycling crossing at that intersection.
I wonder, it looks like there's a few people with their hands up. I'm Paul Berry. I'm the one that indicated that I would make the motion. In some regards, and I understand what David is saying, and I really do appreciate his cooperation and everything like that, but I wonder if we should request the report just so that we do have, all the specifics and everything like that, the more detail and kind of examinations that staff are doing. And I'm just wondering that. I'm also happy if the consensus is to just indicate strong support for addressing this problematic area. I'm happy going that way too, and would be willing to amend the motion in that regard. But I think my preference would be to kind of go forward and request the staff report, but I'm happy to listen to other people as well.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So do other people have an opinion on this? If you could raise your hand or speak.
Yeah, I have a few comments I'd like to make, if that's okay. Douglas here, just for clarification. So if I can just get confirmation if I'm getting this right. So there is a project for this area underway that's scheduled to start next year. When you say start next year, do you mean that a design has already been decided on, or there's like a few drafts that have been planned out, and next year we will start construction, or is that next year we will start consultation and planning? What's the rough timeline for it?
So the rough timeline is to construct next year. And
Okay.
right now we're in, the preliminary design phase. So, I think we have a concept and our working, our designer will kind of get back to it in the next couple of months. And so it's underway. It's not the kind of project we would do public engagement on, really. It's more of a kind of an in-house kind of exercise at this stage of the game.
Understandably.
Yep.
So I
Okay,
guess
we have several.
my only concern, or okay,
Go ahead.
I'll let others people speak.
Okay, I see.
I'll let other people speak.
I see Elizabeth Pugh has a hand up.
Yes, I guess I'd like to suggest that we amend the motion that we have the designer who's working on it come and talk to us when they have something to talk about. And maybe at that time, if people want to beef up some of the things that are being proposed, we could discuss that then. But to have staff do something different and separate on something they're already working on, I think is not a good use of their time.
Okay.
I feel confident that they're going to approach it in a good way. So I think maybe we should just see what they're doing rather than assume the worst.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. And Peter Zimmer has his hand up.
Yeah, yes, we support doing a final fix. As a product designer, I believe in rapid prototyping. And since we're talking about an intersection that's risking lives, I really wonder if there aren't some quick and dirty temporary solutions that can be put in place, say, in the next 6 weeks that slow down the traffic in all these ways. Yes, it will make some backups for the incoming rush, but slowing them down will make the crossing, as it is, inherently safer. And, whether that's putting a false construction zone along both sides of the high-speed entries to this area. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm sure that there are ways to make traffic slow down in the area while the real solution is being implemented.
Okay, there was another hand up, Miles McCormick.
Yeah, I agree with what Peter just said. One of the things that I was thinking, if I'm correct, the last time I ran through there, even the sidewalk lines aren't really visible. So like short, very easy fixes. I don't even see any taping visible, like yellow or fluorescent orange tape to indicate that. Because I know as a runner, when I've gone through there, on average, it's 2 or 3 cars that are going through what is a crosswalk when I have a clear light to go through walking. So I think what Peter said, just some short-term things, even to draw attention to that it is the crosswalk, would help.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Am I missing?
Yeah, sorry, I'm Ashley here.
Okay,
yeah, I basically just wanted to support both what Elizabeth said. I think that would be really great if we could be kept in the loop about what is actually happening and like what that design looks like, but also what has, or like Peter and Miles also just said, that intersection is a nightmare and it's terrifying to try and get across on a bike or walking or whatnot, and so something short term could be done to make it more visible, to slow traffic down, or really highlight that, who has right of way, because it puts people in a very vulnerable position there. So I'd be very, very keen to see something sooner than next year, even if it's temporary before the big design comes out.
Okay. Did I catch everyone? Did everyone speak who wants to speak?
I believe Mohammed had something you would like to say.
Yeah, I just want to request that Mr. Hoskins' email is forwarded to the project to the individuals, to the officials who are working on this. That way, they know what has been talked about. And agree with Elizabeth's point that maybe we can talk to when it's possible, we can listen to the engineer who is responsible for this.
That seems like a very, very good course of action, and I think if we did that, we wouldn't need a motion forwarded to the standing committee.
Sorry to cut in there, Chair. I'm hearing what the committee is saying and maybe recommend that since Paul moved and Douglas had seconded the current motion, which is on the floor, that maybe we vote that down, and I can provide another motion that says something along the lines of we request the designer to present to the AT committee, also include that the Transportation Standing Committee consider short-term measures, and then also email that correspondence forward. So it would be a motion in three parts that could kind of capture everything that has been spoken about, if the committee wanted to go that route.
Okay, so Paul and I didn't realize Douglas had seconded. So Paul and Douglas, would you be willing to withdraw the motion that we're considering so that we can consider a proposal from Liam?
It sounds like we have to vote on the motion, though, according to Liam, which I'm happy to do, or withdraw.
If both the mover and seconder are comfortable withdrawing the motion, we can withdraw the motion.
Yeah,
I'm comfortable
withdrawing the motion.
Yes.
Yes.
And Douglas?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so now we can consider an alternative motion suggested by Liam, correct?
Yeah, I'm just going to paste that in the chat, and that's
okay.
And if someone wants to,
I will read this new suggested motion, that the Active Transportation Advisory Committee, number one, request the designer present to the Active Transportation Advisory Committee when there is a design available regarding this intersection. Two, request the Transportation Standing Committee consider implementing short-term measures while the project is in the works. And three, that the correspondence be emailed to the developer. That's the correspondence that we have, so that the developer is aware of that. Are there comments or concerns regarding this new suggested? Well, I guess, should we have comment? I guess we should have a mover and a seconder first.
Well, let's let David weigh in there, Chair.
Okay, David, can you live with this?
I can live with a lot of things. I guess what I'm looking at there is number 2, and it says request the Transportation Standing Committee consider implementing short-term measures while the project is in the works.
Yeah.
And so I think really probably the only thing that the Transportation Standing Committee can do is ask for a staff report on implementing short-term measures or short-term improvements. I might be wrong on that, but I've never seen it kind of worded like that, and it might cause confusion going up.
Could we?
But I'm open to discussing it. I'm just.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, could we amend number 2 then to just say request staff consider implementing short-term and so on?
Work 2. Staff work.
Good afternoon, Hugh. It's Liam here. Technically, the committee is an advisory committee, so we cannot direct staff. We could say recommend to the Transportation Standing Committee, request staff to consider, and I think that would be in line with the committee's terms of reference, and provided, I guess, David is also comfortable with that.
Okay, that seems reasonable. That seems fine.
Yeah, I think that helps. Thanks.
So it's now request the Transportation Standing Committee request staff to consider and so on, correct?
Yeah.
I will add the updated motion in just 1 second here.
Okay.
And I'm happy to move it again, Hugh, if that's
Okay.
appropriate.
And likewise, I will after, I believe Peter has a few comments he'd like to make.
I will. Okay. I'm really wondering if in our motion, we conclude the fact that we're dealing with a perennial observed threat to life, and we are looking for the fastest possible action. I mean, what's taking our time, what we're about is looking at this letter that's saying the writer and many other people are observing this is a very risky intersection, and it's a question of time till somebody gets killed. And I don't particularly, if we've got a way to step up the pressure a little bit civilly within the rules, I would like to see that there. I mean,
Okay. Well, I guess with the constraints that we're under, I think this proposed motion is just about all we could do, I think.
I wonder, given that we are going to forward the letter that indicates that to the developer, if that might not be sufficient for Peter's indication. But that's the whole reason that we're making the motion. And they're going to get the letter and it's going to say this is a risk for life.
Likewise, I fully understand where Peter's coming from. I'm almost coming from someone who goes through that intersection. Well, maybe not right now during COVID, but when I am working in the office, it's something I go through at least once a week. And to be honest, I think the way the letter words a threat to life is an understatement given how dangerous that intersection can actually be. So Liam, would you be able to confirm if there's any way that that motion can be reworded, or if we're pretty much at our limits in terms of this advisory committee?
Good afternoon, Douglas. Through the chair to you, I think this motion kind of captures everything that we can do, and also here talking about things. David also can take that away and work with his team and probably do a little bit more work as well, which is part of the reason why we have his expertise here with us. It's great to have him. So I think this motion is I think the clerk's office would recommend the motion that we have on the floor, with the only other update maybe being that we include the correspondence in our submission to the Transportation Standing Committee as well.
Okay, thank you, Liam. That seems reasonable, and both the mover and seconder are okay with the amended motion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So unless there is, are there any further comments, or should we move to a vote?
Chair, just really quickly, I just wanted to bring it to the committee's attention that there was the updated and I guess quote unquote final motion pasted into the chat, and I'll just ask the mover to maybe reread that so everyone can hear it, and we'll have it on the record.
I'm happy to do so. So the motion is that the Active Transportation Advisory Committee, 1, request the designer present to the Active Transportation Advisory Committee when there is design available regarding this intersection. 2, recommend the Transportation Standing Committee request staff consider implementing short-term measures until the project is implemented. And 3, the correspondence be emailed to the developer and the Transportation Standing Committee.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment before we move to a vote?
Yes, this is Milena. Just is it possible to put in number 2, urgently recommend?
That's a question to the mover.
Chair, through you to the committee member, we could add any word onto the beginning of that. Unfortunately, it will just go to the Transportation Standing Committee at the same time. There's not really any way for us to expedite that, but I think emailing them the correspondence provides enough weight for them to give this serious consideration.
Right. I didn't mean to move that above any other item that would be coming up to the TSC, just to put the actual word in that we as a committee urgently request.
Through the chair to the committee member, if you want to make that amendment, that's absolutely okay.
Could I suggest as the mover that we change number 2 to recommend the Transportation Standing Committee urgently request staff consider implementing short-term measures until the project is implemented? Through
the chair to Paul, you would consider Milena's motion friendly, which would mean we don't really have to vote on the amendment.
Yes, I consider it very friendly.
Okay, and Douglas, the seconder?
There was no malice meant there. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I will still move that.
Great.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
So friendly amendment to the motion. And if there's any more discussion, now's your last chance. I don't see anyone's hand up. So I believe we can move to a vote. Let me see, where are we? Just a moment. Okay, I guess all those in favor of the amended motion, would you raise your hand or say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed, raise your hand or say nay. Hearing no one opposed, that passes unanimously. Thank you to the mover and seconder. So I believe that concludes our discussions today. And now we can move to an election for the chair. The chair is currently vacant. As you know, I'm just standing in today. What I will do is call for, actually, I'll call for Liam to take over and conduct the election.
For sure, absolutely. Thank you, committee members, for bearing with us. I still think we can finish within our 6:30 time frame there. This election is going to be for the position of chair. I will call 3 times for nominations from the floor. Members can nominate themselves, so they can self-nominate, or they can nominate others. Each nomination does require, I will ask that there be a seconder. So I will say, I'll call for a nomination. And if someone were to say, I would like to nominate Bob, then if someone seconds that, then they go, quote unquote, go on the ballot there, okay? If more than one people would like to stand for the position of chair, I do have a survey link that will be sent to the committee. And this allows you to vote privately. There will be no messaging in the chat to say I'm voting for so and so or whatnot. So it is like a real election secret ballot, and we will not be doing any speeches. It's just going to be if someone wants to stand, great, and if not, then that's quite all right. Before I call for nominations, are there questions from the committee? Questions from the committee going once? Yep, Mohammed.
Well, I mean, if you know, maybe we can see who is interested, and if there is no one showing interest, then everyone can recommend somebody.
Yeah, I'll call for nominations, and if there's folks that are interested, I encourage people to self-nominate, or that's fine. Any other questions, I guess? I see none. Okay. So I'm calling once for the position of chair. I'm calling. I
would just nominate Hugh Millward if he would accept.
Yes, I'm willing to accept, yes.
Great, and does that have a seconder?
I can second that. Oh.
And Milena will second, great. Calling 2 times for nominations. And calling 3 times. I see no other individuals willing to stand. So by acclamation, Hugh, congratulations on the position of chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Hugh.
Yes, also, but now we need a vice chair.
So this means we have an election for vice chair as well. Hugh, would you like to lead us through that?
Oh, well, it's essentially the same format. I'll call 3 times for any nominations for vice chair, and you can self-nominate if you wish. So is anyone willing to nominate a person or themselves for vice chair?
Yeah. Milena wants to recommend Douglas if he shall accept.
Are you willing to accept, Douglas?
I'd be glad to, thank you.
Okay, very good. So we have 1 nomination. I'll call again a second time for any nomination.
We do require a seconder for Douglas.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, is there a second?
I will second Douglas.
Okay,
Ashley.
Thank you.
Ashley.
So we have a seconder. So we have 1 valid nomination. I'll call again for nominations for the second time. Hearing none, I'll call again for the 3rd time. Then hearing none, Douglas is acclaimed as vice chairperson.
Hurrah!
Hurrah!
Oh.
So that went fairly smoothly, I think, and we're still within our time. There are 2 little items to conclude the meeting with. The first is the date of the next meeting. That is set for June 17th. So please note that in your diaries. And finally, adjournment. I will ask for a motion to adjourn, and no seconder is needed for that motion. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move adjournment. It's Paul Berry.
Okay, thank you, Paul. No seconder is required, so I will call the meeting to a close. And thank you all. I think it went fairly smoothly. And I'll see you in a month's time.
Take care.
You. Thank
Be
you.
safe, everyone. Congratulations to the new positions.
And thank you for stepping up.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. You safe.
Stay safe.
Okay, bye-bye.